Hello, and welcome to episode 25 of Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast. Today we'll be discussing the continuation of Cloud9's stumble against Team Liquid, their reenactment of the Civil War with their hype match against FlyQuest, as well as a match preview of their games against TSM and Phoenix1. I'm your host, Havokpus, and today I'm joined by...
Back from the dead, it's PieMagicMan, soon to return.
Trey.
I'm Ian. Hi, I'm here again.
Yes, hello friends. Nice to see you all here again with us for another rousing episode. Also, we'll be having a special guest with us coming up in a little bit to talk about our TSM game. We will be having Kantos, who is a regular on the TSM fan podcast that's a part of our esports fan casting network that we kind of have going. So really nice to have him on, and we'll be hearing from him a little bit later in the episode.
Good thing you ruined the surprise there.
I mean, surprises. Who needs surprises anymore? You don't need surprises. Everyone likes spoilers. It's fine. Anyway, some breaking news first. After citing visa concerns, as well as wanting to keep themselves sharp for the remainder of the LCS split, Cloud9 has decided to pull themselves out of the League of Legends IEM Katowice tournament. What are your gentlemen thoughts? Good, bad. There's kind of arguments for both.
I understand why. I don't like it, but I understand why. So, I think I would say it's okay. It's not really a good or a bad move.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me. It's like, I mean, it sucks that we don't get to see them play internationally, but at the same time, if they feel like it's better for them to do that, then sure, I don't really care. Like, IEM doesn't mean that much anymore, so.
A little bit of devil's advocate here. I mean, they say they want to keep themselves sharp for the rest of LCS. They're like undefeated right now. It's statistically a really good chance that they're going to get into playoffs with a bye. Like, they could realistically lose a little bit of NA practice to go do some international tournaments, because they'll be really good for, like, if they were to bring Ray, for Ray to get some time on a big international stage. But this just kind of unfortunately lowers the quality of the IEM experience overall, which is already kind of lacking with their international acquisitions on talent there.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I kind of support their decision since IEM doesn't really count towards Worlds or playoffs or anything. So, wasting like a week and having to be jet lagged and everything may not seem super worth. But I'm a bit disappointed because I really did want to see them play against teams like H2K and Unicorns of Love and Rocks and Kongdu and all those other kind of crazy teams. So, kind of a mixed bag, but I think their decision is certainly understandable.
I think all the good team, like all the ones who saw themselves at the best in the region, immediately dropped the tournament, so.
Yeah, like SKT isn't there either.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think it's fine.
Yeah, it's probably fine. Anyway, moving on for a little fantasy update. Frozen and Trey still undefeated. Golf claps all around. Everyone else, funnily enough, is tied at 1-3.
Alright, I will see you all next week.
Someone's gonna have to lose eventually.
I'm playing Frozen this week, and if you count tiebreaker standings today, I have more points than he does, so I am sitting atop the ladder.
Yeah, fantasy's been kind of interesting, at least from my perspective, since I'll pick up good players, but then they just decide, like, I don't really feel like performing all that well today, and then I won't get as many points.
See, I have the main three: Contracts, Impact, and Smoothie. And then I have our fellows from C9 Yellow, High, and Altec, which just make the perfect team.
You just round out, you've pretty much won fantasy already.
Yeah, I haven't had to change my core roster at all.
Damn Europe. I should have never tried to play the European game. That was a fool's mistake.
I had a strategy.
It certainly worked. But let's move on to Team Liquid, because I have a feeling that a lot of the discussion will be on the FlyQuest and TSM side of things. So I think we should kind of get things kind of kicking off. So let's talk about Cloud9 and Team Liquid. I think the match was pretty interesting. Game one, well, as a whole, not just game one, but it felt really weird because Team Liquid actually showed up to play when they've been looking pretty lackadaisical all season long, up until like this point.
3 words that sum up that series are Varus Flash
This
ult.
series sucked ass.
It was 2 games of, I think, Cloud9 disrespecting TL. And then in the 3rd game, we sub an Impact, and we're like, okay, we're gonna win. Like, we've had our fun, we want to go to bed.
Yeah, there were so many moments of Sneaky just getting Varus ulted and caught out, and Ray just split pushing really for the sake of split pushing and not really doing it for any sort of strategic or tactical advantage. It was kind of weird to watch.
To be fair, what Piglet was doing, he was ulting and then flashing during the ult animation, so it gave Sneaky almost no time to react to it.
Oh yeah, like his flash ults were really good.
Because by the time that the ult was coming out, he would have, like, he didn't have to wait for the ult animation. It was literally as soon as he flashed, the ult was flying at him. And
oh
so
yeah,
he
did
basically
the buffer
had,
thing.
Yeah, he was canceling the ult animation with flash, and so it was basically instant for all intents and purposes.
That's something I'll never be able to do, by the way. I'm not that mechanically skilled.
If I had to sum up each game with one word, game 1, Sneaky W. Game 2, lol. Game 3, Sneakygasm. And that's it.
That's actually a pretty accurate summary. So what do you guys think of Ray on the team? It's very distinctive from how the team plays with Ray and how the team plays with Impact. With Impact, they're very decisive. They're much more communicative. You know, they're really feeding everyone information. They're really doing well with the communication in the fights. Ray's watching the Reflections episode that came out today, actually. Their communication is kind of there, but it doesn't seem as coordinated or as cohesive. And I think that might be just chalked up to Ray's inexperience, which is understandable because he's not going to be like Impact level, but like overnight. So
I think it's just like Impact is just like really good. You can't. Ray is gonna always be behind Impact because Impact is a world champion and a world-class player who knows what to do in like every situation and is able to communicate with his team extremely well. Whereas Ray, it's just like, I don't know, he just doesn't play on the same level as Impact, and so regardless of who it is, it's just going to be a lesser level of play.
Yeah, I mean, Impact has all that experience with him. He's been with the team longer, so they're comfortable with him. Like, I feel like that's one of the big things, though, too, is when they go into a team fight with Impact, they have an idea. They know, like, this is what Impact's going to do. We know we can trust him to this much. But neither Ray nor the rest of C9 kind of really, I feel like, have built that trust, I want to say, where if Ray goes in or Cloud9 goes in, they don't exactly know how well Ray will mesh into the fight.
yeah, I think that's really understandable. I think another thing is just their playstyles are really different. Ray is really cavalier with his play. You know, like you saw, especially in the Renekton game, I think he was really using his flash pretty aggressively and just kind of using it maybe to kind of jump on somebody, even if he wasn't really maybe going to get a kill or not. But he was a really aggressive player. I think Impact is a bit more calculating in his play, so he kind of is able to hold on to flash and make plays from, you know, again, like a more experienced level. But I thought that was kind of an interesting aspect of it as well. Yeah. I don't think there's really anything to say about the Team Liquid series. I can't really think of much. You know, Ray played for 2 games, brought an Impact, GG, easy win. Do you guys have any thoughts on the Team Liquid series?
Not really. There's not a lot to say about it.
It was a bad game. Bad series.
Yeah. I will say I did like watching the Reflections episode and seeing Reaper just give everyone like just an ass chewing for how they played in game 2. It was really nice to see him actually like being stern and being like a like being a coach and just saying like, hey, you're playing like shit. You need to get it together. Because you see him joking and laughing all around all the time during the pick and ban phase. So we don't really get to see the other side of Reaper, where he's in like coach mode,
Demanding Chipotle.
demanding Chipotle. Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
yeah. Anyway, before we move on to our FlyQuest series, thought I'd just give the other esports fans a little news update, cataloging the performances so far by the other non-league teams. Vainglory won the Viz League Finals 3-2 against Hammer Esports. That's actually a pretty big win because Hammer, I think, is a really good Vainglory team. So winning against them and winning the finals, really good news. CS:GO beat Rush 16-9 and 16-3 in the Pro League. It's the ESL Pro League, I believe.
Yes.
Yes. Dota 2 placed third in the DAC EU qualifier tournament. Watching a few of their games against the Bears, it was kind of hard to watch. Hearthstone Tempo Storm crushed us 1-6 in the Trinity series. COD also got destroyed at MLG Atlanta. Overwatch lost to Afrika Blue 3-1, and they actually need to win their next game against Kangdu Uncia to advance to the next stage, so hopefully they can pull that off.
To be fair, Afrika Blue was one of the powerhouses in the group, so at least they got a game off. It wasn't completely awful. I think that was kind of one of the matches they were looking out for the most.
Do you think they'll be able to beat Kangdu? I don't know Overwatch strength.
No.
Okay.
Kongdu is... They're really good.
Okay. Trey has spoken. We will not beat Kangdu.
Right.
I believe in Overwatch, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard to beat Kongdu.
No, I feel you. Realistic expectations. All right.
They're an extremely good team.
Yeah. So, also for some upcoming matches, Overwatch will play Kongdu February 28th. That is Korean time, though, so it might be like on a different day or something for US and European fans. CSGO, they're actually playing at DreamHack Vegas right now, and will be going on through the 19th. And Call of Duty will be at the ESWC Winter Tournament February 17th through the 19th. So if you want to check out those teams, make sure to check them out, because you got to cheer your team on. Woo!
Huzzah.
Yay, go team. Alright guys, so after breezing through the earlier portions, we can finally talk about the match everyone's been, talking about. There have been civil wars in the past. North versus South, Iron Man versus Captain America, Batman versus Superman. But now we have probably the most storied of civil wars. C9 versus FlyQuest.
Woo!
Such a hype matchup. I was so ready for it. So excited. It was really great to see. What were your initial impressions of watching the series as it unfolded?
My first impressions watching the first game was, holy shit, when did we drop High? It felt so bad watching High just out-rotate us everywhere on the map, and then he baroned himself.
Yeah, High and Moon particularly have really amazed me this split, because these were two players that High's kind of, High's washed up, he's had like wrist injuries, and he played in Challenger. He's probably not going to get very far, and Moon's past, success with, well, not success, but performance with NRG and a little bit on Team Liquid, he didn't really look that great. So, they're going to have a lot of troubles in jungle and mid, and they're actually really, really good.
Yeah, dude, Moon looks like amazing right now. Him and Acadian are definitely the top two junglers in North America, followed probably by Contracts and someone else as the 3 and 4 spot.
Yeah,
Moon,
I think
Moon looks really good. Like I'm impressed by him.
Yeah, I think it's probably. I think in an interview he said that the reason why he's been able to play so well is just because High handles all the shot calling, and since High's the one that's handling all that mental heavy lifting, Moon can just go, "Oh, I just gotta play jungle," and then he's freed himself up so much to just do whatever.
It's fun.
Pretty much, yeah.
You just look at Moon and Impact, and it's like get rid of NRG, add High, and they both look amazing again.
Oh yeah, for sure. But going in, let's dive a little deeper now. So in game one, there was actually a really interesting draft phase. FlyQuest actually decided give Cloud9 Camille, but instead drafted a really interesting comp with Poppy, Eve, and Jace. And they actually had a really interesting strategy of camping the shit out of Impact to make sure he never gets kind of close to getting his items quickly.
Giving him Camille and camping him. In theory, it works. But in practice, what we saw was Camille was heavily delayed, but she still, the second she got anything, was immediately destroying FlyQuest.
Yeah.
And
Champion's just insane.
it allowed C9, even though Impact was getting destroyed in lane, he still could split push, and he still wasn't at a ton of risk.
I think one of the big things there is like they got his Camille pretty far behind. I think he was it 0-4 at most, or was it 0-3? But then
It was
0-3,
0-3.
and then they just left him alone. They let him farm. They let him get items. So like they took all that advantage that they put onto balls, and well, they were trying to do things across the map that weren't panning out quite as well. Like Camille was able to just scale up and become monstrous. So while they did do a good thing, like that was really good, really smart. Like, oh, you'll bait him with the Camille, you pick the counter pick Poppy, because she can block her dash in, camp Camille, camp the strong lane that they have, and it was a really smart plan. But I think they just kind of let Camille get back into it, and that was a fault of FlyQuest more than Camille the champion.
Yeah, I think also there were a couple times where individual players would kind of get caught out by Moon since, Eve is invisible, so you kind of have to play extra scared. I'm not sure if this is because, you don't really see Eve a lot in high elo solo queue, and you don't really see it a lot in professional play. So maybe it's kind of a thing of, well, I'm not really used to playing against Eve, so, there's that awkward spot. Or maybe they just felt confident that Eve wasn't going to be as relevant or as much of a threat as it kind of did. But I think we really did stick to our strengths of just really good mid-game team fighting and manipulating waves and such in the side lanes and fighting towards objectives. At least I think that's what made us win the game.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
I will say though, our early game hasn't really looked that good lately. I don't think
It hasn't looked good for the entire season.
Yeah, we've been slow. It's been like reactive play, and we've been kind of slow to make stuff happen. I think specifically in the Liquid and FlyQuest games, Contracts hasn't been looking as aggressive as he had in like the earlier parts of the split, which is an interesting thing to maybe note.
I think, hopefully, the FlyQuest series overall was a wake-up call to work on our early game. Because if not, I think we're going to start dropping series if we can't get a better early game. Because as much as we have a good late game, better than any other team in the LCS, if we can't get to a late game, teams are going to just start closing out on us before we can get there.
I mean,
Yeah, I completely
I
agree.
think that was the story of
like
game 2, basically.
Yeah, but no other teams in the LCS have a good enough early game to get that kind of a lead. Like everyone in the LCS that isn't FlyQuest has at best a good early game. No one has a great early game except for FlyQuest. They're on a level of their own.
What's stopping teams like P1, TSM, Echo Fox even, from just working on these early games? Because those are all three teams that have shown that they can win in the late game.
But not at the level that C9 can.
C9's a little bit of a different situation, though.
That's
C9's the only one digging themselves into these holes. And digging themselves out. I'm just saying...
I mean, FlyQuest is the only one where they've ever actually been in a hole to begin with. At least at a scale that it looks that bad.
I just think that if our early game doesn't improve, we're going to start dropping series.
What was the statistic? I think, like, at 15 minutes for, on average, Cloud9 are actually behind in gold. Like, it's only like 15 gold or something, but the fact that the team that's currently dominating the region is behind in gold is not a good sign.
Yeah.
I think an interesting point to kind of go along with this is looking at like other regions of play. I know before we were recording you were talking about Samsung Blue and Samsung White, but also the Rocks Tigers. You know, before they got rid of basically everybody, they had the same problem. They would have kind of a bad early game. You know, they would be losing objectives. They'd be losing dragons. You know, maybe even hemorrhaging gold. But somehow, some way, they would hit the mid game. They'd hit the late game. Everyone would just pop off, and they would just win games that way. It doesn't matter how far they're behind. They would somehow play with this crazy level of aggression and, you know, pure skill and determination, and they would win games.
Well, when SKT last split was somewhat like that too, but they were behind in gold, and they would get like 4 towers at once. And all of a sudden, they're up 5k.
That is also a good point.
So, there's a little bit of a difference between just a gold deficit and a momentum deficit, which I think we suffer from both in the early game, where I think SKT and Rocks both suffered from only one of those.
Yeah, that's fair. What do you think we need to do to change this? Should we have Jensen pick champions that can more roam in the early game? Do we need contracts to maybe up his aggression a bit? Maybe put, I don't know, Impact or contracts or somebody on different champions to kind of help facilitate us in the early game?
I think contracts, it's still his rookie split. He's got to learn to have more effective ganks, and not ganks that, if they don't work, put him farther behind.
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of times you'll see him try and gank a lane, and it doesn't work. And while he's ganking a lane, the enemy jungler is either ganking another lane, counter jungling him, or picking up their own farm. So he's constantly falling behind. And he needs to become less predictable. That's one of the big problems that I've seen from him, is that he'll become predictable in his jungle pathing as well as his playstyle. And the team he's playing against will see that in the VODs that they've reviewed, and they'll be able to expect what he's going to do. And that is something that adds on to those ganks not working, because they're expecting the ganks. And so I think he needs to be more dynamic in the way he plays and be less linear and focused on a specific thing that I have to make this work for this game to succeed.
I think part of that does stem from, again, him being like a rookie and him not just having the experience. Because I think every other jungler in the LCS besides like Acadian is like a veteran jungler in professional play. So maybe he probably just hasn't picked up on a lot of things, the improvisational jungle paths and whatnot that veteran players already have down pat. So
It's funny. Sorry, I didn't.
No,
mean to
no,
interrupt
go
you.
ahead. I was finishing up anyway.
Oh, I was just going to say it's funny because I think probably the best 3 looking junglers right now are all not really regarded as veterans. You got Moon, Acadian, and Contracts, where Acadian, in my opinion, has clearly looked the best that I think I've seen any jungler play in the LCS this season. And then Moon, who's played well, and Contracts, who's played well some games, but has tilted a little bit some games. Meanwhile, you have people like Reignover not really doing much. So, it's interesting.
Inori looks really good, too.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, Inori.
Inori
You
is
kind of forget
like-
about Inori.
Inori and Contracts are like the 2 junglers that they're like the tier below Acadian and Moon right now. And then you have people like Sven and Reignover around that middle area.
Yeah, I could see that. So I guess we should be moving along. Does anyone have any final thoughts on the FlyQuest series? Anything that we can kind of put a nice period on before we move on?
Don't play the other team's game. Play your own style and don't let yourself fall into the other team's game because they will bring you down to their level and they will beat you. And we saw that in game 2.
Yeah.
On the contrary, we did see the opposite of that in Game 3. They saw the reliance on high. They got Jensen on Zillion, and just to counter that Zed. So like they were making proactive moves to kind of try and counter the strong points that FlyQuest had in the draft. And
To be fair, FlyQuest lost that game in the draft. They drafted a terrible comp.
So bad.
Oh, the hubris of Blind Pick Zed.
That was really bad. FlyQuest's comp, after the 4-item point, had 0 chance of winning that game. C9's comp just was straight up better for late game. Like, hands down. There was nothing FlyQuest could have done once it hit, like, 5-6 items.
Can we please, just for a minute, talk about this remake?
That was a pretty sick feature. I didn't even know that
deterministic
existed.
disaster recovery tool.
I thought it was great, but what the hell, Riot? How is it that a play happens, there's a visual bug, somebody doesn't die, so you replay the play again, Lemon gets to use his
Voidlings.
his
He forgot to
E
use his
and
Voidlings,
W.
I think.
Space aids.
which allows them to not only get the kill, they blow Sneaky's flash, they get first turret, when it was a visual bug.
It wasn't a visual bug. There was an actual, like, bug that happened.
No, it was actually just a visual bug. The damage was the same. The difference in the kill was Lemon using...
Oh, no, yeah, the damage was different because Lemon got his stuff off, yeah. But, like, I mean, it was a bug that happened, and it needed a pause to happen because...
It did need a pause, but I think going...
So what would you have rather done? Just remake the whole game?
I don't think it needed a remake.
I would have said it was a visual bug, and there's no need for it. They lost the play. It was just a visual bug. That's all it was.
I mean,
So...
I was going to say, if you look at what Altec did, he got his full ult off. He didn't stop ulting until Smoothie flashed away. So it's not like if he started ulting, didn't see anything, canceled the ult early while Altec was still suppressed, that'd be one thing. But the fact of the matter is he literally got his, the full amount of damage off. It was a visual bug. Despite the visual bug, nothing from the play would have changed.
I think the play should have been allowed.
To
Or
play
you-
devil's advocate, though, on that, what happens if they don't remake it and every MF ult after that is completely bugged? Like, what do you do at that point?
Fix your fucking game.
Because then you have to remake the game back to win before it happened.
Okay, well, I think in that situation, yes, I agree. But I also think you should have backed it up at least a little bit to where Smoothie wouldn't have to either immediately blow Flash, because they didn't give, from what we saw, they didn't give C9 enough time to react. It was just, you're in the play again, and you can't avoid it.
I mean, they were in the exact same spot they were before, so...
But the difference is, Lemon was able to get off what he didn't get off before.
Well, that's bad on C9 and good on FlyQuest, then C9 shouldn't have been in that position.
I think when another team makes a mistake and they get a second chance for it, that's somewhat... I don't know, to me that seems very unsportsmanlike. You messed up the play, you shouldn't get another chance.
Oh, it's whatever. They still won the game, and I look forward to seeing that tool be able to be used in the future. I think we can just move on from it.
I agree.
Yeah, it was a pretty good tool. Let's move on. Now we can move on to talking about the matches of the week. And joining us now is Kantos from the TSM fan podcast. How's it going, Kantos?
It's going well. Everything.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem.
Do you wanna give a little introduction about yourself? Talk about your show a little bit before we dive into the TSM preview.
Sure, absolutely. As you just said, my name is Kantos. That's KANT0S. It's also my Twitter handle. It's @Kantos57. I am a TSM fan. I know, sorry, C9 fans. C9 has always been my second favorite. I am a host on the Just Tiltum podcast, the TSM equivalent of the Bodied podcast. And I'm really excited to be here today, talk to you guys about the upcoming match.
Yeah, great to have you. And check out his show. I listened to one of their episodes, and it was really good. So give them a listen. So moving into Cloud9 versus TSM, we play them February 18th at 6 p.m. Eastern. This is a rematch, so we're going to be playing them for the second time. Both TSM and Cloud9 have kind of grown a bit. The meta has kind of settled. So now everyone kind of knows what the big picks are, what the big strategies are. What do you guys think is going to be the things that both teams are going to be kind of looking at? I know TSM lost to Echo Fox recently, and I think a little bit of a mental component for both teams is their level of performance. Cloud9 really struggled against Team Liquid and FlyQuest. The FlyQuest was actually a very challenging game, while TSM got 2-0'd by Echo Fox in a match that most fans, I think, were expecting them to 2-0 them. So what are you guys looking at going into this game?
Before we get into anything, I don't think you can say that C9 struggled versus Liquid. They played Ray. Like, if they play Ray, that means, like, hey, we're confident in our ability to win when we actually play our full roster. It's like Rock Lee whenever he takes the ankle weights off in Naruto and drops them, and it's like, now I'm at full power. What you gonna do? And so, like, I feel like saying that C9 struggled versus Liquid is saying, like, yeah, but it's a nerfed C9.
Fair point.
Yeah, I think this upcoming match is going to be interesting. I think the TSM loss to Echo Fox was definitely unexpected, but I also think it's just because we really underestimated them. Acadian really came out swinging there, and Echo Fox really just out-macroed us and outplayed us on an individual level, and it was, I don't think, something that TSM was really expecting from Echo Fox, who's been, like, really off and on this whole season. So coming into this upcoming weekend, I'm really hoping that our shot calling and our macro is kind of picked up from the last time we faced against Cloud9. Obviously, Cloud9 are much more experienced in their shot calling and in their individual lane play in terms of their roster. And I think that's something that TSM in specific was really kind of struggling with. But I'm really hoping for more from TSM this weekend. I think that either it's going to be a really close game or it's going to be a shutout, probably in C9's favor, just because they've been in pretty peak form, as opposed to TSM, who's kind of had their on and off struggles. Obviously, I'm rooting for TSM, but I really think it could go either way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that overall, C9 has the superior shot calling and macro play, but their early game does look shaky, and if TSM can take advantage of that through their strong laners, then I feel like it'll be a good series. Definitely a 3-game series if TSM shows up in full force, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think that anytime we get to see Bjergsen versus Jensen, it's a great privilege to see that, and I really am interested to see how Contracts and Sven play against each other, because Sven is very experienced, like really long time veteran at this point, and a lot of teams have been paying attention to Contracts and seeing what he's been doing, and he's gotten kind of predictable, and so TSM really could take advantage of that, and I think it'll be a great showing of both sides of the coin, if you will.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you kind of brought Bjergsen and Sven both up in that matchup, just because Bjergsen has kind of had a rough showing so far in this season, and so I definitely want to see more from him, especially against a mid laner as skilled as Jensen. And then kind of the same thing for Sven. He's really had an on and off season. Hasn't really been the kind of performances from Sven or Bjerg that we've really been expecting or hoping for, as opposed to Contracts, who just came out of the gate swinging. I mean, he's done fantastic so far, and so I'm really excited to kind of see if Bjerg and Sven can kind of pick up from, I guess you can call it a slump, or I guess they're slower performing, and see if they can really step up to to some serious competitors here in Jensen and Contracts. So I'm excited for the games. I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Sven and Bjergsen thing, because that's what I wanted to say as well. Like, this is a carry jungler meta right now. Sven's had so much aggression last season. If he can find that form again, this series is going to look a lot more difficult for Cloud9, as well as Bjergsen. Bjergsen, once the shot calling falls onto him, you can see his play kind of devolves, and that's the biggest thing I think TSM are losing with Double Lift. Not to bash Wild Turtle, I think Wild Turtle's still a good ADC. I just think Double Lift, the shot calling he brought to the team, allowed Bjergsen to fully focus on being the monster that he can be.
I absolutely agree. I definitely think, and you can really see it almost every game that we're missing a strong shot calling feel. Bjergsen's individual performance just tanks, and it's really rough for him. You can kind of see it really weighs on him, just because he wants to be that mechanically strong mid laner who's dominating his lane, who's focusing on his lane, and doesn't want to have to worry about the rest of the entire map. And that's something that Double Lift picked up really nicely, was just controlling that whole map for him and letting Bjergsen really just shine in the way that he does, which is his laning and then his late game. So I'm really interested to see if they can kind of pick that up. And Haunter actually just did an AMA where he's, and he said it in TSM Legends, that he's really trying to pick up a big portion of the shot calling role. So I guess we'll kind of see if he's able to kind of fall into that role and kind of fill more of the gaps that Double Lift is left. And like you said, just let Bjergsen actually play his lane and shine like he has.
Speaking of Haunter, I'm hoping if you can answer this question about that Impact versus Haunter matchup. Is there anything you can really do to kind of limit Impact from being effective? Because it seems like no matter what you really give him, no matter what you really do to him, it seems that he's always going to come together with the team come mid-late game and, smoothie him and Jensen, everyone's, shot calling, and they just, roll on people through these team fights. Is there anything that TSM might try to do to limit his effectiveness?
I definitely think taking away his Shen at this point, especially since Shen is just such a strong pick, and Haunter has been trying to play the Shen, and last season he did a really nice job with the Shen, but this season he's missed a lot of his taunts. He's had a bit of a struggle, so I think when it's TSM's not on the red side curse where they have to do your typical Camille, Rengar, and LeBlanc, I think they're definitely going to try and either pick or ban out that Shen just to try and take it away from him. I think on the other side of that coin, I would assume that Cloud9 will probably do the same thing for Haunter's Maokai, which is just such an impactful pick for Haunter. But in terms of trying to shut down Impact, it's really going to be tough to do. I think it's really going to depend on how well TSM can out-pick ban Cloud9 if they can even do so, just to try and maybe not make Impact ineffective, but allow TSM's draft to make themselves more effective than how much Impact can do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it'll really be an interesting game. You have all these you have all these players and you have all these really interesting matchups. You have like Impact versus Hanser, Contract versus Sven, Jensen versus Bjergsen, Sneaky and Smoothie versus Wild Turtle and Biofrost. Just, fan favorites probably across the board. So I think ultimately it's going to be a really great match. I just hope that it goes to 3 games. Whenever it comes to a game like this where it's Cloud9 versus a really, hyped organization or a really storied organization like TSM or CLG, I just hope that it can be a really high quality match instead of, well, I always hope that Cloud9 wins, but it'll at least be entertaining.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely don't want to see a shutout either way. Like I said, I am hoping that TSM will pull back and win, but I do want it to be a good series for them. I want them to deserve the win, but I don't want it to be a shutout. I want to have some good games going on here, so I definitely am on the same page there.
For sure. Do you guys have anything else to say about the TSM matchup before we move on to Phoenix1?
I would say put a lot of focus on bot lane. I think Wild Turtle and Bio seem to be not performing at their peak right now, and neither is Sneaky and Smoothie. So I think it'll be kind of a big stepping stone in who steps up and who gets an advantage early.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that might play onto the jungle too. I think we're going to see it's tough because we can either see a lot of strong bot lane focus just to try and get, like you said, the 2 struggling bot lanes just to try and get one of them ahead of the other, or we could see a strong top lane focus to, like we said, have TSM try and overshadow how strong Impact is going to be, or vice versa, have Cloud9 kind of just push Impact ahead of Hanser and get him to that late game carry. So I think that there's going to be a good focus on the side lanes there, just to, like you said, try and get one of the bot lanes ahead of the other in that sense. But I definitely would focus on that bot lane matchup. It's going to be interesting.
All right. Well, let's move on to C9 versus Phoenix1 real quick. Phoenix1's been looking all right, actually. I think they're at 4-4 in the standings right now. Their strongest players are probably Inori, Ryu, and Arrow, because Inori's been looking really good in the jungle. Ryu from H2K, and Arrow from... Who did Arrow play for? Was it KT? Yeah, KT. All 3, individually really strong players, and I think the matchups will be really interesting. I think probably one of the biggest weaknesses C9 will probably target is probably Zig in the top lane, because I think Zig has always been kind of Phoenix1's Achilles heel, since he is kind of probably the weakest top laner, or one of the weakest in LCS, I think.
Yeah.
Honestly, sorry.
Oh yeah, you can go. You can go.
Honestly, I don't think this will be too hard of a matchup for us. I think Nori is good, and he can maybe keep up with contracts. Jensen, I think, can outplay Ryu from a map standpoint and a lane standpoint. And then I think Sneaky and Smoothie together can beat Arrow and Healbot. So.
Yeah, I think that P1 looks good, but not great. They're a very solid middle of the pack team in the LCS from what it looks like recently. They looked really good a couple weeks ago, but this week they had a less than stellar showing. And so I don't want to say that it'll be an easy match, because Ryu and Inori are still very good, but I don't want to say that C9 will have a difficult time with it either, because they're good, but they don't look amazing. So I think that it'll be a relatively, not necessarily clean win, but like a relatively worry-free win.
Yeah, and if I can just kind of, jump on I know I'm the TSM guy, but kind of jump on the back end of that, almost like what you had mentioned previously with Sneaky Smoothie not doing as well as they probably could be. I definitely think Arrow kind of tips the favor of P1, but I would have to go back to, Zig versus Impact, or even, honestly, Ray, as definitely tipping it back in the scales of your favor. In terms of jungle mid, I agree that I think it's going to be a toss-up to who can really perform better. I would, if I had to put money on it, would put money on Cloud9 again, just because of the synergy as a whole. But I definitely think the bot lane is going to be something that, if Arrow can really step up, I think he might be able to push over the struggling C9 bot lane.
Yeah, I think our bot lane kind of wins out, because Arrow and Gate have... No, Arrow and Adrian. Gate was on their last split, I think. Arrow and Gate... damn it, I said Gate again. Damn it, I'm so confused. Arrow and Adrian. It's 2 A's.
Just call him Healbot.
Healbot, that makes it easier. Arrow and Healbot. They haven't looked like they've been really clicking and being as synergistic as some of the other NALCS bot lanes. I think also Smoothie has a really good shot calling acumen. He has a really good mind for how to play the game and how to play the lane in various bot lane matchups. So I think he'll probably definitely kind of maybe lead us to victory, even if we have a rough early game. His mid to late game shot calling has always been pretty on point. And I think our players are a lot more consistent than Phoenix1's players. So I think it'll definitely be down to who shows up to play and who has their head on their shoulders.
Yeah, sounds pretty accurate to me. Like, Arrow obviously is good, but I think that C9 is still better. Even a weakened looking Sneaky from years past still beats Arrow in his current state, so we'll see.
And just to throw a couple stats in there, Arrow is currently the highest damaging ADC with 643 DPM, where Sneaky's at 467. Like, Arrow is over 100 DPM, like, above the next person who's 6'8". He's really lane dominant right now, and that could play into their favor. I think you guys are kind of downplaying Smoothie a little bit. Smoothie's going to be a pretty big factor in that lane. He's been playing very well, I think.
Smoothie is so good.
Yeah.
His Misfortune is immaculate. I love watching him play Misfortune.
I'm the carry now.
Like, he's got a good depth in his champion pool, and he can play what the team needs. I think, like, even if Sneaky's not the most lane dominant, if he gets his comfort picks, like he gets his Jhin, he gets his Ashe, whatever, he will be a monster later on in team fights as long as they can survive the lane. And Smoothie will definitely help him survive the lane.
Yeah, absolutely. Smoothie has really been, I don't want to say a silent carry or underappreciated or anything like that, but he really hasn't been taking a lot of credit, or people haven't been giving him a lot of credit for the wins, because people like Jensen, Impact, and Contracts have been showing up big. But Smoothie has been the definition of consistency for C9 in these games. He shows up every single game. He has a massive champion pool, and he plays every single champion in that pool extremely well. And I think that he's extremely underrated.
Yeah, I mean, I think every time we have a chance to talk about Smoothie, I can only say nice things about him because he's such a great player. So definitely going to be looking to a protein shake for helping us pick up a W against Phoenix1. Does anyone else have anything to say? We're probably running out of time, so.
Nah, sounds like a solid recap.
All right. Well, as always, in the outro portion of our show, we like to go through our predictions of how we think this week's matches will look. Kantos, why don't you start us off? Who do you think? How do you think C9 is going to look this weekend?
I think C9 is going to look pretty good. C9 has been looking pretty good. I think C9 is going to take a pretty, like was said, comfortable win against P1. I'm really hoping for a good C9 versus TSM. I think it's really going to depend on which TSM really shows up. If we saw this past week's TSM versus Envy, it's going to be a really good game that I think TSM can take. If we see the game, the Echo Fox TSM, then it's going to be a sweep for C9. But if we also see Week 1 TSM versus C9, I think it's going to be the same results, where we get that 2-1 for C9. So I definitely think the TSM versus C9 is going to be the biggest swing. It's going to depend on which TSM really shows up.
All right, PieMagicMan?
Yeah, as far as P1 goes, I think even if some of their lane, even if the bot lane might be stronger, and Annoy looks good, when it gets to the mid-late game, I think Cloud9 will just be able to out-macro out team fight them, and that's where they'll take the win. That one's going to be a 2-0. Like I said, like everyone else has been saying, TSM has been such a force in NA that I really hope this is like a really fun to watch series, 2-1. But Bjerg and Sven really need to step up if that's going to happen. So if they maintain the level of play that they did for the last week even, it'll probably be 2-0 C9.
Trey?
I'm going to keep mine short and sweet. 2-0 against P1, 2-1 against TSM, both.
All right, short and sweet. I like it. Ian?
Yeah, I agree with Trey. 2-1 TSM in favor of C9 and 2-0 versus P1 in favor of C9. TSM with the little asterisk up there, it could go 2-0 if they show up without their week 1 look to them. I'm not actually sure. I'm not exactly sure how to put that. Their week 1 same roster but different vibe, I guess. Their week 1 vibes.
No, I got you. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. 2-1 in the TSM series and 2-0 Phoenix1 series. Seems like Cloud9 can't stop, won't stop. Hoping they keep this pain train rolling. So to close out this episode, we usually like to talk about any moment of the week in esports, sports, anything cool like that. Does anyone have any moments of the week they'd like to share before we close out the episode?
I think there was a pretty great meme that I saw where it was C9 sitting there and it just said, Anakin, I have the high ground. Where FlyQuest was Anakin, and it was like the perfect moment where you realize, even though the ages are flipped, the same ending happens.
That's actually a really accurate meme. That's pretty good. Hats off to whoever made that.
I made a discovery, or rather someone I know made a discovery and shared it with me, of a website of this artist that makes drawings of famous people, and in particularly Obama, with pancakes and unicorns.
It's really specific
It's
themes.
It's really funny. I'll link it to you guys after this, but
Yeah, I kind of want to see that now.
It's so funny. It makes me laugh every time I see one. It's really great. So that's my moment of the week.
All right, Kantos, do you have any moments of the week?
My week has been pretty empty of esports, so I'll just live vicariously through you guys.
That's the best kind of way to live, to be quite honest. Kantos, do you have any moment of the week you'd like to share?
Probably not too many positive ones or memes or anything like that. There's always esports buzzing here and there, but yeah, not really anything super positive or fun that really caught my eye. Not this week.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. I'm gonna go with the sneaky W. I think that was just a super cool play. So I'm gonna take that one. That was such a cool moment. Probably will be immortalized in the highlight reels for the ages. Well, I guess that'll do us for tonight. So thank you for listening to the 25th episode of Bodied the Cloud9 Fancast. Feel free to tweet questions and feedback to @C9Bodied or email us at bodiedfancast@gmail.com. Questions might be answered on the next episode. Haven't got any questions yet, but that's fine. Check out Just Tilt 'em, the TSM Fancast. Really nice show. Talking about TSM. If you're a TSM fan, if you're just curious about what the TSM fans' perspective is on their team, anything like that, go check it out. Really nice show. And thanks for joining us, Kantos. It was nice having you on.